So this one here is the Fisher's Talent. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you're going to look at the top card of your library. If you reveal it, if it's a land, then you get to create a blue fish token. Then you get to draw a card. However, as you upgrade it, you get to make bigger and bigger things. In a landfall deck, this is going to be relatively good. In a deck that's based around card draw, it's going to be great. Even here, this is still what, 4 to draw a card, an additional card each like thing. Right, with the potential of creating a blocker. And as I said, as you upgrade it more, it is going to get better. Not relatively, like, it's not going to be great in a lot of decks. This one here is a bit more kind of niche, but it is going to be good in some decks, especially around, like, you know, ones that want to be able to draw cards or can manipulate the top of your deck, or, you know, lots of great things like that. We've got the Alchemist talent here. This one here is going up, and I honestly don't know how much is going to go back down. So this is 4, and it's going to, when it enters, create a 2 tapped treasure token. So this one is in the animated army deck. Once you upgrade it, it makes it so that each unit of treasures taps and sacrifices for 2 mana instead of just 1 mana. Then once you do it again, upgrade it to level 3, whenever you cast a spell, if you pay mana from a treasure to cast it, it's going to deal damage equal to that spell's mana value to each opponent. So you can cast really big things for cheaper, and then they're going to deal damage. This is good in, you know, I think this is great in like spell slinger decks, mostly kind of artifacty kind of decks. I need like 4 different copies of this. I think I need it for my lesbian detectives, who are based around like a whole bunch of different treasure and food and stuff tokens. I need it for my actual treasure deck, which is got Vihan as the leader. You know, there's so many different uses for this one. And as I said, it's going to be harder to get, especially because this one is from a precon, so therefore it's only going to be in the collector boosters. I don't even actually know if it can drop in the collector boosters. I think it can as a foil, but I don't know. We got the Fortune Teller's talent. So this one here is one that was spiking up yesterday when I started making this video. You can look at the top card of your library at any time. This is 1 blue to be able to do that. Then for 4, you can play cards from the top of your library, which is like Elven Chorus. From, or at least there was a version of it from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, only from Lord of the Rings, which is a $2 card, but it only casts creature spells. This is cast any spell. You may play cards from the top of your library. It's not locked into anything. Then once you pay 3, spells you cast from anywhere other than your hand cost 2 less. This is going to be absolutely bonkers in the Paradox Power deck, which is the one from from the Doctor Who set with the 13th Doctor as the commander, because it was based around casting spells from anywhere other than your hand. So there's a lot of different ways that this is going to be useful in a lot of different decks once you fully upgrade this. Even being able to just play cards from the top of your library has a lot of uses in that particular deck. We've got Gormans talent here. Gormans talent. During your turn, artifacts you control are foods. You turn all of your artifacts into food. So you got treasures, you got clues, you got whatever. They're all foods now. This is one was within the squirrel deck, the squirreled away deck. Once you pay 3, it's whenever you gain life, create a 3/3 green raccoon. Then once you pay 4, whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So great in so many food decks. It's brilliant. This is so great in Commander. So Builder's talent. So there's some uncommon ones. There is 2 different so these ones, those ones there were from the Commander set. These ones here are from the actual base set. There was 2 cycles of them. There is an uncommon cycle, and then there is a rare cycle. So this is one of the ones from the uncommon cycle. It's going to create a white wall creature. Whenever 1 or more non-creature, non-land permanents you control enter, put a +1/+1 on target creature you control. So I could see this being used in like a flicker-based enchantment kind of deck. It's 6 cents at the moment. This is only paying an additional 1. Even like an Auras deck, right? This is still going to be good in an Auras deck because you're still going to be able to put that +1/+1 onto it. Like something like the what was it? The deck from the Scavenger deck from Fallout. It's going to be decent in that. Then when this class becomes level 3, return 1 target non-creature, non-land permanent from your graveyard to your battlefield. This one here I can't see spiking up too much. It's not incredibly great. It's not incredibly versatile. I think it's kind of restricted a bit. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe you guys can disagree with me. Let me know. We've got the Gossip's Talent. This one here is actually my favorite one of all of them because I just think it's absolutely bonkers. So 1 and a blue. Whenever a creature you control enters, surveil 1. That alone, I think, is worth and really, really great. Just constant surveil in the rack, in like a rat deck. This is going to be really great. Like with Threshold, this is going to be really great in any kind of blue deck that wants to play with a graveyard, right? Surely, right? I can't see as many kind of ways to be able to constantly surveil as this. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked. Not all that great, but like in a deck that is based around like getting combat damage in, it's not going to be awful. This part here though, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may exile it, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Just flicker everything that deals combat damage. That I think is amazing. Maybe I'm wrong. It is an uncommon, so it's going to be, around a bit, but it's also relatively cheap. So while, I talked about before getting these before they spike up too much, there's some of them that they're really great. The Blacksmith's Talent here, whenever it enters, create a sword, then for 2 and a red, at the beginning of combat on your turn, attach target equipment you control to up to 1 target creature you control. This, I think, is really great. Just bypass any equipment cost. You don't need to pay to equip it. If you're playing like 1 equipment per turn, this is going to pay for itself easily. Then this here, during your turn, equipped creatures you control have double strike and haste. Really, really great. I personally really love this one too. Very, very cheap. So this is the last of the uncommons, I believe. No, 2 more uncommons. So this is Hunter's Talent. Whenever it enters, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Relatively simple. There's a lot of cards that do very similar to this, but generally, they're kind of one-offs. When this one here, you can upgrade. Whenever you attack, attacking creature gets +1/+0 and gains trample. I need this for my lesbian detectives as well because, Vastra goes in and attacks. I want trample on her. I want her to hit something when she comes in. And then finally, down here for 4, at the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Just potentially card draw every single turn. You're in green. You're going to have a creature 4 or greater. And then the final uncommon here, Bandit's Talent. Whenever it enters, each opponent discards 2 cards unless they discard a non-land card. I was absolutely destroyed in Standard the other day by someone playing 2 of these and then upgrading them to this and then having like other things that made me discard. It was awful. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, they lose 2 life. I don't think this one is as great for Commander, but I think for Standard and other game modes, I think it's going to be decent. And then finally down here for 4, at the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card for each opponent who has 1 or fewer cards in hand. So if you've got like mass discard, I think this is good. Like something like Rankle, right? Like where you're causing everyone to discard each time you attack and stuff. I think that this is decent for that in Commander I'm talking about. Other places, I think this isn't going to be too bad. All right, now on to the rares. So these rares are the ones that I definitely think you should have a look into. So Artist Talent. I am just double checking that I actually had the price of this one right here. Yeah, it's that's not too bad. So this is Artist Talent. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. That's pretty decent. This upgrade here though, non-creature spells you cast cost 1 less. That is really great because non-creature spells, this isn't like, this isn't reducing your instants and sorceries. This is reducing everything, as well as the fact that it is going to be tied to an enchantment, which means it's going to be harder to remove. Then for 3 more, if a source you control will deal non-combat damage to an opponent or an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +2. In like Grierson, Grierson, is that how you pronounce it? Grierson. Here, bring it across. This dude here. In this dude here, that's absolutely bonkers, right? It's going to be crazy. This card is really great in my opinion. Once you kind of fully upgrade it and stuff, if you've got treasures, you can go, you know, use those to be able to upgrade it and everything. If you've got a burn deck, I think this is good. Like if a source you control, that means like Impact Tremors. Impact Tremors is going to be dealing 3 now. Or, you know, a whole bunch of stuff. We've got Storm Chaser's talent. When it enters, create a 1/1 blue-red otter. So that's not all that powerful for the level 1. Then once you get to level 4, return target instant and sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. That's not awful. I think that's good. It's the level 6 here that isn't too bad, like is really good, I think. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, create a 1/1 blue and red otter. So you get to potentially, like, if you've got a huge kind of spell slinger deck, you could do some really nasty stuff with creating a whole bunch of blue and red otters. This one here, especially in like, what is it? Riku of the Many Ways, or Many Paths. Riku of the Many Paths. That's what my deck is. It's built around like creating a whole bunch of creature tokens and stuff. This is going to be bonkers in that, because like those creature tokens are then reducing it. The Scavengers talent. This is probably the #1 current one that I think that you should be picking up because it's cheap at the moment, right? At the moment. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control die, create a food. That alone, for 1 black, is really great. Then, pay 1 and a black. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, target player mills 2 cards. It's not even non-token permanent. Insanely great. Then here, at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice 3 other non-land permanents. If you do, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Holy cow. Oh man, this is a really, really great, in my opinion. Especially, like, it's going to be great in an Aristocrat deck. It's going to be great in any recursion decks. It's going to be great in, you know, just so many decks. I think that, like, any combo decks or anything, any food decks alone, even if it's not foods, right? Like, foods are here, but you don't need foods. You could have fucking black clues for all I care, and it's going to be really great in it. This is really cheap at the moment. Grab it. Really, really... I can't see this one staying as this cheap, especially because, again, they are harder to get because they don't have any fancy kind of special arts or stuff. They're not going to drop as often because essentially, you know, some slots are reserved for cards that have the fancy treatments and stuff. This is not going to have a booster fun version of it. Therefore, it's going to be harder for you to be able to get it. There's going to be less of them out there. All right, we've got Caretaker's talent, which was spiking up something nasty earlier this week. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to stay up that high. It has spiked up another, 50 cents overnight, but I think this one is really great. Whenever 1 or more tokens you control enter, draw a card. That is really great to start off with. Then you pay 1 more extra white, and then you get to create a token that's a copy of target token you control. It doesn't even need to be a token that entered. It's essentially just a free populate for paying 1 white. Really great. If you have spare mana later on, you can do this, you know, 3 and 1 white to give creature tokens you control +2/+2. But just, you know, these 2 sections here are already going to be really great. All right, then we got Innkeeper's talent, which is probably the one that has, like, I think this is the most expensive one. And most people kind of probably have seen it around a little bit. It's spiked up another 60 cents overnight. Again, just because it's up this high at the moment doesn't mean it's going to stay up that high. However, it is a rare, again, without, you know, any fancy other versions of it. So it's going to be harder to be able to get. 1 and a green. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. What green deck's not going to want +1/+1s? Then pay an extra 1 green. Give everything with counters ward 1. That's crazy, right? And then 3 and a green. If you were to put 1 or more counters on it, put twice that many. That is a doubling season for counters. For, like, you know, doubling seasons, what, a $30, $40 card? 40 US dollar card. This is currently $20 US. It's got other effects along the way and stuff like that. The giving stuff Ward 1, I think, is great, especially because Ward stacks, right? They will have 2 separate versions of Ward on them. They'll have Ward 1 and Ward 2 or Ward 3 if they've got other Ward or something. This is just protection, making people pay 1 more if they want to target your stuff. My friend hates this card. He's going to hate it so much, especially when I play it against him. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys as to what you think. If I'm kind of ranking them all, I think that the BLC ones, the ones from the commander decks, are all going to kind of be harder to get. Fish's Talent is going to be probably the weakest of the 4, but all of these other 3 I think are great. Fortune Teller's Talent, I think people are kind of underrating potentially, because like this is Exile. This is if you're playing stuff from Exile. This is if you're playing stuff from, you know, from the top of your library, say playing stuff from the graveyard, whatever. There's so many different ways you can get that, although it has spiked up a lot to kind of match that. Gorman's Talent, I think, is great. The actual uncommon ones, I think the only one to kind of look out for is Gossip's Talent, and then I think the one to kind of skip is Builder's Talent. I think all 4 of these can find use in a lot of different decks, and all of the rare ones, I cannot see them staying, especially probably below like $2. Artist Talent, I think, is decent. I think Storm Chaser's Talent's probably the weakest of them, but Artist Talent's probably not too far above it, but both are still good. Scavenger's Talent, this is going to spike so hard. This is going to spike so hard. Get it now. Caretaker's Talent and Innkeeper's Talent are already going up. Have a great day and goodbye.